This is the second lecture on Hinduism, and it looks at the major philosophical systems. Each system is rooted in the Vedas, and all hold ethics to be central to an orderly life. They all claim that suffering is due to ignorance of the self. But notice the predicates that are given to the self: omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent, perfect, eternal. These are the same predicates that are given to the God of Abraham within Western tradition. The difference, however, is that the spiritual reality is thought to be immanent in Hinduism. Samkhya is one system and is founded by Kapila. Here there is a claim that there are two states of reality: Purusha, the self, and Prakriti, the material universe. Think about this for just a minute. Descartes claimed that there were two substances, thinking substance and extended substance. This has some parallels. In Christian thought, there is a sense of dualism as well: the spiritual self, mind, soul, and the body. All states of suffering in Samkhya are a consequence of confusing Prakriti with Purusha. Here I find some connections with St. Augustine's philosophy of disordered desire. St. Augustine claimed that we have a choice to look at the higher state of ourselves or the lower state of ourselves. The higher state was thought to be the spiritual self. The lower state was thought to be the body. Augustine further claimed that when we love God's creation more than we love God himself, we get our loves out of order, and we are expecting the deepest fulfillment from the creation of God rather than from God himself. In doing so, it is possible that the will falls into sinful behavior in order to preserve that which is temporal, the created universe, as opposed to loving that which is eternal. Here's a quote from the Vedas: "We are like gods who forget the heights from which we came. So intent are we on the joys and sorrows of earthly life." Advaita Vedanta is founded by Vyasa, who systematized the Upanishads. If you remember from the last lecture, the Upanishads contain the metaphysical, philosophical precepts of Hinduism. In this system, there is the claim that there is only one state of reality. This is monism. But there are two interpretations. The first is that self is an emanation of Brahman. And here there are comparisons with the Western philosopher of Spinoza, who said that only substance there is God, and that everything that exists is an emanation of God. The second interpretation is that Atman and Brahman are one, and material life is an illusion. The illusion is called Maya. In both systems, in both interpretations, all ignorance is a consequence of confusing the self as separate from Brahman. And here is a quote: "In ignorance, we think that we exist as individuals, superimposing the notion of separate ego self on the underlying absolute reality of pure being, pure consciousness, and pure bliss." Yoga is a discipline that seeks to make the mind absolutely calm and clear. There are various yoga paths. Raja Yoga is founded as early as the Neolithic age, but it was Patanjali in 200 BCE who described the sadhanas of the system and writes the Yoga Sutras. Yogis say that it is easier to calm a wild tiger than it is to quiet the mind, which is like a drunken monkey that has been bit by a scorpion. Jnana Yoga employs the rational mind rather than trying to transcend it. But the ultimate wisdom is spiritual rather than intellectual knowledge of the self. These are the teachings from Arjuna. Spiritual knowledge is the only thing that can destroy miseries forever. Any other knowledge removes wants for only a time. Karma yoga is a service rendered without any interest in the fruit of the labor or without any interest in personal sense of giving. A person who is greedy for the fruits of labor becomes entangled, but this consciousness leads to liberation from the self in the very midst of work. Bhakti Yoga is the path of devotion to a personal deity. Devotion is more dear than ritual piety. When you ultimately find that this I cannot be destroyed, let it remain as I, the servant. This ends the second lecture on Hinduism.